For your bell work today, you will solve two equations for x. Pause the video here for 6 minutes to complete your bell work. For problem 1, you should have begun by subtracting 21 from both sides and then divided both sides by 3. A negative divided by a negative would get you a positive number. For problem number 2, you need to move your variables to the same side, which is why you subtracted x. Then you need to move your constants to the other side, which is why you subtracted 4. And then we needed to divide both sides by 4. And that's how we got our answer of positive 10. Today we're going to learn how to write equations and solve for x in order to determine the solution to a system of equations. A system of equations is simply a pair or group of equations that are related to each other. You'll know you understand it when you can write a pair of equations in slope-intercept form, and when you can set them equal to each other and solve. This is important to us because systems of equations help us compare things like cell phone plans, utility companies, and travel options to help ensure we're making the best financial decision for ourselves. So let's take a look at this first problem. You want to go to your uncle's house and you have two options. Option A is to take a taxi, which will cost you $10 plus $15 per additional mile. Option B is to drive by yourself, and the cost of gasoline will be $2 per mile. And I want to know, after how many miles will the total cost of the two options be the same? Basically, I want to know, when will option A equal option B? So let's start by writing an equation for each of these. For option A, we saw that it's going to cost me $10 plus $1.50 per mile. And here I'm defining x as the number of miles. Option B is going to cost me $2 per mile. So I'm writing 2 times x. Now I want to know, when will these equal each other? Specifically, after how many miles, or at what x value will the two options be equal? So let's solve for x. I'm going to subtract 1.5x from both sides. I'm going to divide both sides by 0.5. And I'll end up with an x value of 20. What that means is the two options are equal to each other after driving for 20 miles. So depending on how far I'm driving will determine which of the two options I choose. Now let's check for understanding. Use the word bank below to help you label each part of the equations. Pause the video here for 3 minutes while you complete the task. This y is the total cost of option 2, which makes this y the total cost of option 1. 2x represented the cost per mile to drive by myself. 1.5x represented the cost per mile to take a taxi, and the 10 represented the initial cost of the taxi. Now let's try one together. Your first step is to define your variables. What is x going to represent? Take 2 minutes to read the problem and then define your variables. Pause the video now. We should have defined x as the number of movies. Phase 2 is to write your equations. You should have one equation for option A and one equation for option B. Pause the video for 2 minutes as you write your equations. Equation A should look like 20x plus 160, because option A will cost you 160 and then 20 per movie, meaning 20 times the number of movies. Equation for option B should just look like y equals 40x, because you're only paying 40 per movie. Phase 3 is to solve. We're going to set our equations equal to each other and then solve. Pause the video for 2 minutes while you solve. Let's begin solving. We're going to subtract 20x from both sides. We're going to divide both sides by 20. And then we see that x equals 8. 8 would mean the two plans are equal to each other after watching 8 movies. Phase 4 is that we need to double check our work. I'm going to plug the 8 back into both equations to make sure they equal to each other. Four times 8 is 320. 20 times 8 plus 160 is 320. Awesome, we did it right, because this is the x value that makes the two equations equal to each other. We can confidently circle our answer and move on. Now, let's check for understanding and see how we feel about word problems. Put a box around every word or phrase that signals it might be the slope of the equation, and put a circle around every word or phrase that signals it might be a y-intercept. Pause the video for 2 minutes while you do this task. All right, all the words that would mean slope are things like monthly fee, per month, per day, and words like each time. Words that might mean it's going to be a part of the y-intercept are things like initial value, any startup costs, any installation fees, and words like one time. Now you try. Pause the video for 5 minutes while you go through all 4 phases of solving a problem. All right, let's check our work. By defining our variables, we should have said that x is going to be our number of months. And we're going to write our equations. For plan A, it'll be $11.25 per month plus the one-time installation fee of $120. And for plan B, it should be $18.75 times X plus the one-time installation fee of $60. Now we need to set our equations equal to each other and solve. We're going to subtract 60 from both sides and subtract 11.25 from both sides, making sure to stack them under their correct term. That's going to leave us with 60 equals 7.5x. Now we're going to divide. And see that x equals 15.5. What that means is after 15.5 months, the cell phone plans equal each other. Because cell phone companies don't typically charge in half of months, we would probably say that after 16 months, the 2 plans were equal to each other. Let's check ourselves. Label each part of the functions. Pause the video for 2 minutes while you complete this task. All right, hopefully you labeled 120 as an installation fee, $11.25 as a monthly fee, $18.75 as the other plan's monthly fee, and then $60 as the other plan's installation fee. In 2 to 3 sentences, summarize what you've learned using the sentence stem, "Today I learned." Pause the video here for 3 minutes while you reflect. Today we learned that the solution to a system or group of equations is the x value that makes the equations equal. For Tier 1 students, you were confidently able to write both equations and solve for x. So you will begin by writing and solving a system of equations. For Tier 2 students, if you're given the equations, you're able to solve them, but you struggle with writing them, so you will begin by choosing the right equations for each situation and solving them before moving on to the Tier 1 task. For Tier 3 students, we struggle to define the variables, so we're going to begin by matching key phrases with their equations before you move on to the Tier 2 and then Tier 1 task.